The following podcast is intended for mature audiences. If you enjoy our work, please like, comment, subscribe, and follow the links in the description. Thanks for your support, and enjoy. Greetings and salutations, listener. It is I, Eric J. Chucky, joined, as always, by the guy who's been DMing for me lately, the boy.
Hey!
This is the Two Nerds Podcast, and this is one of those podcasts that floats in time, because I have no idea when you're going to get it.
Yeah, we're not going to date the podcast. We're not going to try and refer to specific times or dates or anything like that, because you never know how long it might take.
Yeah.
It might not be 12:54 a.m. Monday, March 12th.
I'm glad you said that, because I really wanted to date the podcast. Because I like, this is the thing. This is the thing that always happens, and it happened exactly as I said. We go through January and February clawing for shit to talk about, putting out some of our worst and sometimes best podcasts about random crap. Like, I am surprised we have not yet did a podcast about things we found on the ground.
A leaf.
Some dust.
This grass.
A Cheeto. Crunch, crunch.
No!
But, and then...
I can't describe it.
March hits, and the floodgates fucking open. You know, we've already got a couple podcasts in the can for March, easy peasy. We've got Full Metal Alchemist on Netflix, which by this point we've already covered on a previous podcast, chronologically. There's all kinds of great stuff coming up to watch.
Babe Ruthian to call your shot like that.
I'm gonna call that shot. This might not come out until after WrestleMania, and we skipped a WWE pay-per-view.
Did we actually skip one, or?
Well, I mean, we haven't recorded the podcast yet. I don't like our chances. Regardless, I happened to stumble across another D&D survey. An Ask Meme, as this blog calls it. And give you a little shout-out, because I believe it's your original content.
Work.
The Watcher Cleric on Tumblr. I don't know the rest of their content, but if you want to go there, that's where I got the survey from.
We just directed all our listeners to a porn blog.
I don't give a fuck. Go Google titties.
So,
although I can let you know, if you Google Jumbulus Titums, that returns nothing. Absolutely nothing. I was disappointed.
So anyway,
been sitting on that one for over a year.
Truly, you picked your shot well.
Babe Ruth, man.
So, we've taken several D&D various surveys before. We've broken into two-parters before. We've covered a lot about D&D, but I mean, it's my favorite pastime. Sorry, you're going to keep hearing about it.
And you know what? Things change with time. So even if you've heard our past D&D surveys, first of all, this one has some new questions that I really like. Secondly, man, I don't know, maybe you'll hear some different shit this time. Yeah. It's not like we listen to all our old podcasts and we're like, all right, we've got all our facts straight so we can corroborate our previous stories. Hell no.
I have an aversion to being wrong on the internet where people can hear. So I always have to stop myself from doing that.
For a long time.
The major motivator is that I literally cannot stand the sound of my own voice. I have no idea how you handle that, listener. I really don't.
Ultimo Dragon is a kind and patient man. But for a long time I had a similar problem. So when I went top 10 blah lists on probably LiveJournal, I always appended an "at this time."
Well, he was right.
Yeah, nothing. You get nothing.
Literally nothing.
Google's just like,
did not return any documents.
Yeah.
That's never been on the... You almost have to tag this podcast. That way it's the one result.
If YouTube wouldn't come down on me, I would make it the title. Oh, God. Fuck the algorithm. Let's get this show on the road, because surveys always take longer than we think they will. Question number one. Let's start with the boy, because I've said a lot of words. A favorite character you've played?
Favorite character I've played. Ooh, well, I haven't played many role-playing game characters recently, so
Yeah, you played one.
yeah, I played one. I wouldn't describe him as a favorite character.
No,
I've
he's
played.
pretty
Probably
two-dimensional.
you know what? I'll highlight Laz this time.
Okay.
Lazarus Tesla. He was a player character in a sci-fi game that I played. He was, I mean, let's be real, he was dorkier Iron Man. But I like Iron Man, and I'm a dork, so there we are. He had dad issues, and he was super fun. He was just fun to play as a part of that campaign. I also really liked that campaign, and hasn't gotten as much play on the podcast as some others, so I felt like I brought it up.
It was Chrono Trigger.
Yeah, he stole Chrono Trigger.
And got elements from other shit and crammed it in there too. Cool stuff. I liked what I did with it, but that just sounds egotistical.
I liked Laz specifically because I set out to specifically, to fit in with the setting. He was scared of robots and AI because there had been rampant AI problems in that setting. And then he had to come around because, I mean, it was Chrono Trigger.
It was Chrono Trigger with some shades of Mass Effect 3.
Son of a bitch.
Oh, I got this sweet little, this text-to-speech thing, too.
Yeah, he did the robots dialogue with that.
Yeah. And it was hell carrying on a conversation because I'd be typing up a response and then they'd say something else and I have to backspace.
See, I can't do that. I don't type quickly enough, but
it was fun.
It was an excellent DMing technique.
Favorite character I've played, I want to talk about Xanthos.
Yeah, do so. By all means, he's super great.
I'm playing him right now. For a long time, I was really stymied in what I wanted to do in role-playing games for probably longer than a year, but I only noticed it about a year ago. So I've just kind of been forcing myself to try out new things, and it's really helped break some walls down. I am playing a tiefling, as much as I resent that pronunciation, Paladin of Conquest.
Found it was right.
Yeah, then it had good reasons to back it up.
Yeah, it even had good. It's not like GIF. There's actually etymological reasons it should be tiefling. I hate that because now I have to adopt tiefling for a certain amount of time before I voluntarily go back to the good pronunciation and just accept that I'm wrong in a better way.
I only think it's goofy because it sounds like hobo speak. Government steal my teeth. But he's a badass. He's pretty original character that usually I draw inspiration from other characters more, and I can liken him to a couple of individuals. But he's pretty whole cloth. I've been having a lot of fun with him. I'm trying to take over the world.
It's easy to liken him to other characters you've played, but hard to liken him to characters
Yes.
that the listener would have seen.
Yeah. Well, and usually I draw more inspiration from public figures, whether fictional or otherwise. The last major character I played, the last couple major characters I played, I can point to an actor or character in a movie and go, that guy. But he's cool. I'm really digging the Paladin power set.
Fifth edition, good edition.
Fifth edition's so good.
It's a good edition. It's a D&D good edition.
So what's your favorite character that someone else has played?
My favorite character that someone else has played, this is essentially just going to be I compliment White and then he basks in the glow.
Nice.
He's been a player character in pretty much every campaign I've ever DM'd. I believe, actually, no, I didn't need to say pretty much. He's literally been a player character in every campaign I've ever DM'd. So it's probably either going to be him or Brandy.
I'm doing the Luigi suspenders thing right now.
It's basically just a matter of picking between one of Brandy's characters or one of his. And if I'm being 100% honest, it's Maul.
Yeah.
It's just, I love that character. I love his character arc. I love how well everything worked out in terms of not working out well.
It's ironic. He's actually a character, one of the few characters I've run that's the kind of character you would come up with.
Yeah, I mean, he really is. He's grim, trying to do the right thing in a dark world, sort of tortured soul, not always succeeding. I'm a bit of an edgelord sometimes when it comes to role-playing. I'm not. You know what? I'm old enough that I'm just going to accept it.
If no one rules the edge, it's just going to run wild.
Me and...
You're holding it down.
Me and Gabriel Reyes,
yeah,
man.
You guys are holding it down.
But, it's that, or if I'm going for, fun, it's Zoot.
Yeah, Zoot was fun.
Just because he's such a meme that, literally not just our friend group, but like our extended friend group references Zoot.
In case you're just joining us, Maul
Woo!
is...
Ooh, throwback!
Back when he called him Kodos instead of Maggle.
Maggle.
Maul is an orc, formerly hunter. Now, he's as close as you can get to a barbarian without raging, and a pirate captain. Who basically decided to, I don't know, be a pirate king, and
he was burdened with glorious purpose against his will.
Yeah, for
he
his
was
people.
Thrust into a situation where he had to ensure that a bunch of people he hates don't get dead, because to do otherwise is unacceptable. And the character was played so well, and it fit the story I was trying to craft so well, completely by accident, because I'm going to be honest, most of that campaign was actually Brandy's character. Like, she was the main motivating driver for 80% of what happened in that campaign, because she just took the plot and went on her own direction, and I followed. But Maul, he managed to just, like, weave in such a rich narrative in that, because Brandy's character was also, El Rainey was also really good. I feel bad for saying this, but Maul was better.
I feel like El Rainey was so protagonist. You and I have a strong... we're drawn to the secondary protagonists, the supporting characters, more than we are the protagonists.
Yeah, if there's like a duology, if the secondary, the supporting protagonist is probably going to be the one I like more, to be honest. Because normally, to be honest, they're more free to have a very emotive character arc, whereas the protagonist ends up being more trying to get the audience into the thing.
Well, and I'll speak from a bit of a literary perspective here. The protagonist, especially in a character-driven piece of work like a role-playing game, like a good one anyway, they are driving the plot. They are what is, okay? Whereas the secondary characters, the supporting cast, the other players in a larger game, even the villain sometimes, reflects that. They are the shadows of the other character, of the main character. Maul could not be Maul without El Rainey, both in the fact that...
he wouldn't have worked as the main character.
No, he wouldn't have. He wouldn't have gone on near the quests he went on, the emotional journeys, the character paths.
El Rainey was a great character, and she served to be the launching platform for a character who's honestly one of my favorites.
I am going to borrow a turn of phrase from Kuroko no Basuke. El Rainey was the light. Maul was the shadow.
Yeah.
I don't think... they're inseparable at this point.
I would never... If I am the DM for a campaign, I would never accept one of you being played without... Like, one of those two characters being played without the other.
I mean,
I would straight up say no.
You can split the party, but not like that. And honestly, there was a point in the campaign where El Rainey got upset with Maul over something he did, and like the character's self-worth just crumbled. That was a harder hitting blow than anything he'd had to do or anything that had been done to him in that entire story. So, yeah, they are a pair, a joined pair. Gosh, I don't know if it's one of my favorites, but I'm just going to go ahead and tag El Rainey since you took Maul, and we've talked at length about it. I've talked about other characters before, mostly boys.
And that makes me feel good, because El Rainey was really good.
Yeah,
she was burdened with glorious purpose intentionally. She took it. Some people are born great, some are pushed. And Maul was pushed, and she leapt. She was the driving force of the campaign because she had plans. She intended to conquer her. She was Xanthos.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good comparison. She acted like proactive Luna Lovegood.
Look, I like Luna Lovegood a lot. So.
El Rainey was an elvish assassin. And also, I never got to mention Zoot was a Zabrak soldier, I think, in a Star Wars campaign.
He was Patrick Warburton with no
horns.
sense of self-preservation and an ego issue.
He was specifically Brock Sampson.
Yeah, he was Brock Sampson with horns.
And at Maul, I heavily based on Ron Perlman. I even had a cigar that I bought that I did not smoke, but I did
He
chew
never lit
on.
it once during the whole campaign. It was hilarious.
I just sort of chewed on it and talked around it as Maul would. But your favorite side quest is our next question. This is a really interesting one. Side quest.
You know what?
You can't say the entire Maul and O'Reilly campaign.
I mean, it was.
It was.
The whole campaign was a side quest that you guys just delved into, and then you joined the main quest having already almost completed. Which was hilarious, because then you guys went, fuck, we left this too long. Oh no, now everything's fucked. Because the main quest just kept going without them. Because that's how a good, solid role-playing world works, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
So they got back to the main quest and went, oh shit, we haven't been watching this at all. We left the stove on, and now the house is on fire.
Oh no, there were death marches. That's bad. I thought these guys were cool. What the hell?
But, see, I have trouble answering this. Because I don't really think of, campaigns like that. At least pen and paper role-playing games, I don't think of them as side quests. They're just the next part of the story.
Sure. I think there were side quests. I think collecting materials for that craftsman in my Final Fantasy IX campaign, I think that would count as a side quest. I think, honestly, in that same campaign, Brandy's quest to go fight the other martial arts masters and gain power so she could come back and take care of her, rival was a pretty strong side quest.
Can I count the fight against Boss Matsumoto?
That was more of a culmination of a series of side quests, but...
It wasn't the main quest. It didn't lead to the ultimate climax of the campaign.
No, that's fair.
It's the climax that you remember from that campaign. I like it specifically because it had almost nothing to do with my character. I was basically just watching from the sidelines as this epic kung fu fight happened to a soundtrack that is so good it's actually one of my favorite songs now.
I wish I had the remix I used for the final fight.
I do. Do you? Oh, like the actual remix for the final fight of the campaign?
Yeah. But my favorite side quest. I don't know if I'd 100% count that, but it's not a big deal.
I have trouble with that.
Sure, and I come from the same place you do, where as a DM, I know what I intended as a side quest.
But as a player, it's just the next thing I do.
Yeah, it's just the thing I'm doing. I'm gonna pull on Xanthos again. A lot of his side quests. His main quest is rising to power. His main quest is taking cities, but a lot of the shit he gets involved in on the side is really compelling stuff.
You know what? Like an example of, from my perspective, the current quest going on in my current D&D campaign, that's a side quest.
Sure, I'd agree. Yeah, it's a way to gain power and resources on the side while I can't quite do other things yet.
It's exactly what it's intended to do, but if I were playing it, I wouldn't think of it like that.
No, certainly, and that means it's a good side quest.
Yeah,
it's compelling despite being not the main goal.
All right, so number 4, I should probably start. Your current campaign.
Tears.
My current campaign is essentially I drop 2 characters, one played by our roommate David, who we've mentioned before in the podcast.
I'm pretty sure his link to Game Master Problems, I think, is still in the description.
And then White here. I have this specific campaign world that I've made specifically so it's useful for D&D campaigns. I don't want to go into too much detail of how I mean that because it's kind of like a magic trick. And White knows because he sort of helped me brainstorm it, and we had to brainstorm some other campaign stuff, but it works like a magic trick to a certain extent. The more I talk about it, the less fun it is. But I made it to specifically be useful for D&D campaigns. And because of the way the world works, and because of how I work as a DM, I don't need to make an overarching plot. I just drop the characters into a specific part of the setting, and what they do is the plot.
This is also part of how we work as players, and especially the characters we've made after the lessons I learned with Cordell.
I have only rarely come to profit by making a hard and fast set of things that should happen before the session.
Sure, and if you've got players that are self-motivated...
I make pieces of the world, I make things that are happening in the world, and then I just let the players interact with them in a natural way.
If you've got players that are motivated, they'll do that. I've DM'd for players that don't know what to do or too shy to do things.
I don't think I'd be a very good DM for players like that.
You might not, and I've run into problems like that before. I don't have a current campaign per se.
Oh, is that true?
The most recent campaign I've been running is something we've affectionately referred to as Dungeons and Dark Souls.
Yeah, you played Dark Souls and have been crowing about how amazing it is ever since. If you'd like to do some of that now.
Hey, Dark Souls is good.
There we go.
Also, they're making a Black Panther sequel. Just if we're saying things that everyone...
That are just stupidly, ridiculously obvious, yeah. But I don't... It's not that I dislike... Dark Souls 3 is good. I would make contentions about the other two, but Dark Souls 3 is just a good video game. But I like D&D, and he liked Dark Souls, and we thought it would be fun to see if we can do Dark Souls in 5th edition. Just me as a player, Dark Souls style by myself, and then just run through and do like a very combat-heavy, very dungeon-crawly campaign, which neither of us have done in a long, long time.
Not properly, anyway. So
we wanted to see if it was a thing we could do, and it's basically been a non-stop combat and dungeon crawl scenario.
It feels like Dark Souls.
You've done a really good job making it feel like Dark Souls.
Yeah, and I'm not even trying to toot my own horn here. It's one of those things where, like when you're cooking a dish and you throw in spices, you don't do this, but I do. And you're like, when does this end up tasting good? And it does. Good.
Yeah. No, taste your food. Well, taste your food while you cook, please.
Sure. No, that's different. But like, you can't take spice out. So if you're looking at your spices and you're like, oh, I wonder if this is going to taste good, and then you taste your food and you're like, oh, good, it did. And that's kind of how I feel this is set up. I threw a lot of elements in there that I thought would work, and we had to do a couple little tweaks, and I'm sure.
I feel like we wouldn't have had to do as many tweaks if I had known about action surges, if I hadn't just skipped past that.
You might be right. But it gets real crunch heavy. And, like, it was something I was afraid of going into it. I believe I mentioned it beforehand.
And I kind of knew it would, but I wasn't afraid of it so much as it's been so long since we've had a crunch-heavy campaign.
Well, the only problem is that it's a solo crunch-heavy campaign.
So there's no, like, fun table back and forth about, oh my god, that fight was so close, though.
And I have to be very careful about managing encounter balance, because I want to provoke the kind of concern and,
You want it to feel like Dark Souls, but
I don't want it to feel like a bad Dark Souls clone that just kills you for no reason.
And also, the more you kill me, the more I have to grind, and you wanted to avoid grinding that.
Sure, yeah, because it's already going to be so crunch heavy. I'm loath to let it go, because I had some really good ideas for the story, but at the same time, I don't know how to improve the fun on my end of watching you go through very
because I'm having a great time.
Encounters. Yeah, no, and I recognize that. I feel like this is working gangbusters, except for me.
And as we fucking harped about in our last role-playing podcast, the DM has to be having fun too.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I feel like that answers that question.
I think it does too. Favorite death? That's an interesting one. It can be.
You skipped one.
Oh, okay. I did skip one. I'm so sorry. It attracted my eyes.
We'll go back to it. Favorite death?
A monster, player, character, NPC, whatever. But favorite death?
I mean, it's probably gonna be one of the big bads that I've run.
Yeah.
I heard a thing. I mentioned it on the previous role-playing game podcast. DMing is trying earnestly to kill your players and then finding a graceful way to lose every time. And I think this is why I end up being a DM more than a player. Even beyond it being a scheduling thing or blah, blah, blah. It's because there's satisfaction in taking down the bad guy after a long, hard fight. But I get so much more satisfaction out of being the bad guy and watching the bad guy be taken down.
Yeah, you get the proud papa thing, and that's really good.
It's so nice to watch the looks in my players' eyes when they manage it.
Yeah.
And when it wasn't wasn't easy, and when it was like skin of their teeth, terrifying, and they manage it at the last moment. that stuff is what I run on as a DM.
This campaign has given you plenty of that. You don't usually know about it until afterward, but still. You're like, all right, well, that fight seemed easy. I'm out of spells. And David's like, I'm dead.
I'm literally, I'm asleep. So, I have a hard time picking because I've actually run several successful campaigns, and I like that. I feel like that's nice because I've also recently had some bad luck, so it's good to look back on the good times. But I think I'll throw us way back into the Wayback Machine to the first season of the Kinetic Files. One of the modern supernatural cult campaigns I've run, I separated into seasons, like a TV show, because I wanted to run it like the X-Files or like Supernatural or that sort of vibe. Gorgavit.
Yeah, that's what I thought you were going to say.
It was so close. If memory serves, you were literally one hit away from death.
I made so many saves, and they were so skin of my teeth. I was sure you were fudging them.
Nope.
But you weren't.
I have fudged one roll as a DM. I'm still mad about it. But like, it was so skin of his teeth, and it worked so well, and Brandy's character was so hurt, and it was the whole campaign, the whole season was about this one villain arc, finding and cornering and getting to grips with this one overarching bad seed, and they did it, and they killed him, and he got a great death scene, and the looks in their fucking faces, man, you remember that for the rest of your life.
Man,
He's gonna pick Graham, one of my characters from.
Oh God! I drew a picture for D&D December about how sad I was about that. It was something like the prompt was one of your least proud moments, and I'm like, oh, that was it. Damn, that was just bad math on my part, and that ended in the worst possible way. Oh God! I'm not sure I can think of anything. Because I've had a couple satisfying deaths that I've perpetrated, like my own death. That went well. That went really well. I feel like that whole fight was cool. But, there's been... I don't know. Even as a player, those satisfying, like, yeah, I killed that guy. Especially since a lot of them happened with Maul, it was never... it was never... there wasn't too many obstacles in between... me fucking up a dude, and that dude getting fucked up.
You were good at combat.
The only thing I was good at, but he rolled well when it mattered. But
Bosk's death would have also been high on my
Bosk's
list.
death is good. I liked that. I liked the guy I killed after that. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was part of the Arboreal Orcs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that, like,
the general.
And the resonating that happened after that was really, really...
Wasn't as hard of a fight as Bosk,
no.
but it was more emotional. It mattered more to you, as it were.
But even still, there's small potatoes. I don't think there's ever been a villain where I was like, yes! Or a friendly character I was like, no! So that's really hard to say. Actually, I'm going to get my own Wayback Machine here. This was really early in my time as a dungeon master over ICQ.
Ooh, I don't know that I've ever heard this story.
I had created my own campaign setting with all my own classes, very heavily based on Final Fantasy. And I was running a game over chat with a couple of my friends, and there was some trials they had to go through. And they had a cool barbarian pal, and they got to this dragon's trial, and he was like, I need a sacrifice. I need one of you to step up and give your life. And of course, the 2 player characters were like, well, I don't know. And the barbarian's like, I will do it. This will end the horrible winter. This will save my people. I will sacrifice myself. And it was this big moment. And both of the characters, both of the players really reacted to that shit. And, like, I mean, I felt bad, so I brought him back later. And they were like, but he died! And I was like, they taught me a lot of things about being a DM. Taught me a lot of things about good storytelling. And I remember it after all these years. So, I'll say that.
That's a really good story. I've lived with you a long time, but finding a story I haven't heard before is rare. All right, now, the one we skipped.
Yeah, favorite NPC. My bad.
Favorite NPC. You know what? There's so many NPCs I love. NPCs I've played. NPCs that I've been in campaigns with. Super special highlight to Beauregard and the entire Regard family.
Oh my God! Yes. He's that NPC that the stereotype you hear about when a new player comes into a campaign and somebody else brings the other guy in and the whole party shouts his name loudly.
And then the new guy's looking around like,
what's going on?
That's pretty much the deal. But I'm gonna pick. I have trouble not picking an NPC I've run.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna try because again I like DMing. I'm gonna try and pick an NPC that I was a party to, that I played with, and we're gonna loop back around to an earlier question, and we're gonna say Mir from the Chrono Trigger campaign.
Not who I was expecting you were gonna say.
Really?
I was expecting Puck.
Puck and me will be bros forever, but Mir got him the heartstrings.
Mir's good. Mir's a good choice. Mir was the Robo equivalent.
Yeah.
One of yours. Can you pick one of yours? Just real quick here.
Kevin Kline.
Oh yeah. Oh God, I love Kevin. I forgot all about him for just a second there. No,
Kevin
he's great.
was always a goddamn blast to roll with.
Yeah, he was fun. I love being around him. Yeah, you forget some of the best stuff. That's why I like these surveys, because you reminisce, and I get to share it with you guys. I'm going to pick one of my own here.
Kevin Kline. I should probably describe who that is.
Yeah.
That was a small, almost Paul Schaefer, but a little tubbier. Think Varys the Spider now.
Runkle.
Yeah, Runkle.
From Californication.
Runkle from Californication. He was a mission giver in a Colt Regan campaign. He was essentially the manager of a couple demon hunters and he gave them their missions, and it was very, very, by the numbers. Hey, here's the problem. You guys go handle the problem. You need anything, you give me a call. I handle it like your agent. He was Runkle from Californication.
He was sassy.
Before Runkle.
He was an asshole. He was great.
He was a previous player character of mine's husband. Teddy Mercury was, I believe I mentioned him on the podcast before. He had been retired as a player character. He had gotten too powerful to be a player character at that point. So, to be a good one at least. So, I retired him, and then his husband ended up running a demon hunter managing business out of his study.
I'm going to try to think of an outside one. There's a lot to choose from, is most of the problem. But I do want to highlight a couple of the characters. I like good shopkeepers. I like establishing a good shopkeeper, because if you do it right, people are excited to go shopping, whether that's for magic items, for mundane items.
It goes beyond, hey, I gotta go to the store and pick up some groceries. It's, hey, I gotta go to the store and see Bill. I gotta pick up some groceries, so I'm gonna go hang out with Bill and get some stuff.
Two of my favorites, and I don't know if I could choose between them. One is a kobold named Gurkit, who carries this immense backpack that is basically a pop-up, mini mall of magical items he's gathered. I use a hairy dog-like kobolds, more like the second edition D&D ones, not the modern little snappy reptiles. I have suddenly forgotten. Curio. Curio was a Moogle who I ran in many of my Final Fantasy-inspired campaigns.
Yeah.
Who had a little store.
He gathered up that sort of, we need to go buy something from the store. Curio!
Yeah. And I dug him. He was fun to play. He was cute. He was practical but small-voiced, and he knew he was tiny. So, he played into that a lot. But, God, somebody else, a good NPC. There are so many. I think last time we had a question like this, I mentioned Grandma Blue Pants that you were not around for.
Nope. To be fair, I haven't been around for much of what you've talked about so far.
Well, yeah, this was actually...
You've been throwing the Wayback Machine to before me.
No, well, this is actually, you were on a business trip, and Brandy ran a short one-shot for me and David. And there was this woman in, I believe a lycanthrope kid had sort of lost his nut. He like got, separated from his parents, turned into a were creature, and was holed up in a cave in this national park. And ironically, I was playing an undead guy who was raised from the dead, but he didn't know A, how he died, or B, who raised him. And he used to be like a park ranger. It's just complete coincidence. It was hilarious.
You played Colt Regan Firewatch?
His name was Hector Stoneface. He was
Stoneface.
He was cool.
Awesome.
But so we go and find it in this cave. And I'm skipping a lot of the details. And this lady had been taking care of this feral kid, as well as a couple of the other kids he'd kidnapped to keep him company, and some of the animals he brought in there. And she had, like, busted her leg, like, in the kidnapping, because he grabbed her, too, to, like, take care of him. He needed a mother figure. But she was fighting through it. And we found her, and she was, like, on death's door, but all the other kids kept talking about Grandma Blue Pants. And I was like, we can't let Grandma Blue Pants die. She was pretty epic. Now, that said, like, I could literally pick out of a hat any name of most NPCs I've encountered. In the boys' game right now, I can think of 5 people off the top of my head. One also named Hector, ironically.
Now I'm doing
the
Luigi
suspenders. Brother Hector's great shit, but I like him a lot more as a narrative construct. You use him to give my character pats on the back in the most subversive way I have ever seen elegantly performed.
Thanks.
No problem. Like, I have no problem complimenting you when you've earned it.
All right, so fair enough.
There are 2 kinds of podcasts on this show, kids. They're the kinds where we're like, all right, so how do we fill the rest of this time? And then the ones where we're like, oh shit, this is going on long. This is the second.
How long is this survey?
It's 35 questions.
Ooh, all right. I'm a little. Okay, now I'm going to knock down the 4th wall. We might need to split this one, my man.
Yeah. You want to split it up?
Maybe. We'll see. We'll see how long everything takes us from here.
All right. So the next one is your favorite downtime activity.
I don't know that I get this question.
Like, what do you enjoy your characters doing when there is downtime in the campaign?
That depends entirely on the character.
I would agree with that.
Like, this is going to be a quick one, folks. That is literally dependent on the character I am playing. Like, for instance, Laz, who I mentioned earlier, when he had downtime, he was repairing his armor. He was researching ways to improve his armor. He was looking into ways to improve, like, his power source, which was his big, fundamental, cool thing he'd invented. Like, he was doing a bunch of research stuff, but that's entirely different from what, say, like, Paxton did during his downtime, which was get
Drugs.
high. Which was just get high.
Get high and play cards.
Yeah, get high and go play cards. That is literally what he did during his downtime. So it just depends on the character, man.
Yeah, I mean, I have to agree with that. Depends on what I'm doing. Sometimes I don't even like downtime activities. I'd rather get to the next point. But all right, moving on. Your favorite fight/encounter? I believe you already answered this question, but unless you have another one.
You know what? I'll pick one that wasn't about the deaths. It wasn't about like a big climactic moment. Just a fight that was really mechanically fun, which is something from my recent campaign. The fight where I had you guys fight 2 dragons.
Yeah, that was cool. That was short but cool.
2 dragon wormlings. It was just like such an excellent way to make your characters look cool. It was a hard fight that was really close, even though it was really fast, and it made you guys came off looking like $1 million in the best way.
Do I pick the Wayback Machine funny answer, or do I pick a perhaps less accurate but still enjoyable, more recent answer?
Whichever one, my dude.
I think I've mentioned the other one on the podcast before, so go back and find it. You'll know when you hear it. But actually, the boss that we managed to get through in the Dark Souls campaign was really fun. You know?
Oh yeah, the sad lady who lost her baby and then turned into an evil undead, who I had to fight, and then I summoned someone with my summon sign because it's Dark Souls, and he brought in an NPC who I'd met earlier in the campaign, and like we fought together, and there was a really cool moment.
Shit, I do great shopkeepers because I just remember the old lady shopkeeper from that game.
But like there was a cool moment where I missed my attack. But the NPC hit theirs, so Spork here fluffed it as I charged in to close the distance with the boss who'd done a Dark Souls thing and had leapt away, and I closed the distance enough that the NPC was able to run up behind me, jump off my back, and hit her.
Yeah, that was fun.
Like, it felt really epic and cool and really tight, it was really scary.
And I had some music queued up, and I could tell he was really into it, and that's, like you said earlier, that's what you want. Your favorite thing about Dungeons and Dragons, Satan's game.
Casting magic missile. No,
At the darkness.
My favorite thing about D&D is its flexibility. Because even if we're just talking about D&D, not role-playing in general, specifically as the question asks, Dungeons and Dragons, I can use different editions. I won't be using different editions. We'll be using 5th edition from here on out. I'm not going to go back. But I can use D&D's framework to tell thousands of different stories that are wildly different. And it works really well, especially 5th edition. I already know that I could DM everything from a Star Wars campaign to Spelljammer, if we want to go more D&D style, to mud huts like primitives. It wouldn't stop me. It's a really solid framework, whilst at the same time it has enough flavor that you don't have to make everything yourself like something like GURPS.
There was a moment we were considering some extracurricular Dungeons and Dragons, if you will. We were talking, I think about a week ago, maybe longer at this point, about your campaign world. And even just within this one world, there was so much potential for so many different kinds of adventures to happen. Everything from Monster Hunter to Game of Thrones. I just hit the mic, sorry. And it all works within the confines of D&D. And I think that's really, it helps support your point. My favorite thing about Dungeons & Dragons is it is literally je ne sais quoi. There is something about it, some core, fundamental attractant to me that I always come back. Just the way everything fits together, even when I hate the edition, I always am, I might need a refresher now and then, but I always come back going, I was thinking about making this warlock, That's fair. Just something that draws me in.
That's fair. Next question.
Your favorite enemy and the enemy you hate the most. I want to say they probably mean like individual monster here, but
I think I read that as enemy type.
Enemy type? Okay, that's interesting. I was about to say we can leave it open to interpretation.
I read that as enemy type. I don't know, because if we're going specific enemy, there's not really an enemy I hate the most.
Not anymore?
I mean, like, it's a love to hate at this point. It's cool. The wounds have healed. But ironically, way back machine to my fucking high school D&D, the enemy I hate the most is undead. I'm never gonna be over it, man. I'm never gonna be over it. But my favorite enemy, honestly, to use as a DM...
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it.
My favorite enemy is Dark Mirrors.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's fun stuff.
I just... Look, I know it's a little hacky, but I don't care.
Hey, man, tropes are tropes for a reason.
My favorite enemy to use as a DM is... I don't think my players are aware of how much in their careers with me I have literally had them fight someone who I had grabbed their character sheet and I was using it.
I can name a couple personally.
Yeah.
So.
You can only name a couple, right. Is the thing.
If I can only name a couple, there's got to be that many more. It was the point I was making as well. I think my least favorite enemy is anybody who can, like, take you out of the fight for a long time.
Without killing you?
Sure. And I think, like, I'm going to call out a specific effect, and that's going to be old school fear effects. Like 3rd edition Pathfinder, and some other formats, where the target has to run away a certain distance or spends a certain number of turns running away. I would rather be, like, in the middle of combat, cowering. I would rather fight carrion crawlers who are stunning me and eating me than...
Then, oh god, now I gotta run back.
Yeah.
Which I used that recently, and you were very annoyed.
Sure.
It was great.
It came up a couple of times, you know what I mean, in recent memory, and I was just like, this is anti-fun.
You also hate that from a player perspective. You hate old school fear effects. You hate using old school fear effects, because then you gotta chase them down.
Sure. That's fair as well. I mean, like, it can be handy if they're really committed to killing you and you can afford them getting away, because that's a great way to chase them off and make the battle smaller. I get it from a logical standpoint, but especially when you use that shit against the player, that's no fun.
As a DM, I fully disagree.
Sure, but as a player, you are not only taken out of the battle, but you're taken out of the battle longer than the effect lasts.
Because then you gotta get back.
Yeah, but out of my favorite, man, I just like really obscure shit. And like a lot of the stuff that I call quote unquote obscure is actually really popular, but it's popular in that way that I love this monster, but I never get to use them. Like Umber Hulks and Mind Flayers.
Rocking the flumps.
Yeah, shit like that. Just stuff that you look in the book and go, someday.
I'm not looking forward to fighting Mind Flayers at any point.
Dude, I haven't used...
Squid-faced bastards.
I felt like I rode too hard on the Mind Flayers for a long time in a conceptual space. I don't actually know that I ever used any. That I just haven't been using them in my D&D games, and they're such a compelling villain that I understand well.
Yeah.
So, maybe in the future. Dun, dun, dun. How often do you play, and how often would you ideally like to play? I think we can both answer this rather quickly.
Yeah.
Weekly?
More. Next question.
Your in-game inside jokes / memes / catchphrases and where they came from. God, that would take far too long.
That's a podcast.
That's a whole podcast.
That's many podcasts. As a matter of fact, we've done maybe 20 or 30 just D&D podcasts, and we've explained memes in every one of them, and we're not even a quarter of the way through.
I want to think of... we just came up with one that I hope becomes a thing. Freedom yogurt.
Freedom yogurt. The Rum of Trust.
The Rum of Trust.
Nega Elves.
Nega Elves.
So what they are and where they came from, buddy, sorry, no.
I will, for the sake of the survey, we can cover, because it was your game, I'll count this as a twofer. We'll cover the Freedom Yogurt. We released a lot of Dark Elves from the clutches of their mistress. I made them breakfast. My character comes from a very Greek region, so I used yogurt.
These are Dark Elves. These are Drow this is them being introduced to the setting. Not fully, they are known in parts, but this part of the setting hasn't really had any contact with them before, and these Drow haven't had any contact with the surface world before, so they don't know anything about surface life, so the one thing on the breakfast they were given that they recognized was yogurt. Because there are milkable things in the Underdark, so there's yogurt.
And so when we went to go liberate some more, I bought a big jar of yogurt.
Which, when he eventually got them nice and liberated and then showed them the head of a drider he'd severed for precisely showing them how badass he was, he then gave them their freedom yogurt.
I believe it was David who called it, what is this, your freedom yogurt?
And it is now.
Yeah. So there you go. Introduce your current party. I think we have.
We've done Xanthos.
Yeah.
We have not introduced Gallus.
I'll let you talk about Gallus since he's not my character.
Gallus is... Okay, so pulling the curtain back, I stole a bunch of parts of this setting from various other fantasy worlds. One of the things I stole is pretty much the entirety of Alera Imperia from Jim Butcher's Furies. Is it like 5 books? I don't know. I don't remember how many there are in the series. The Alera series, the First Lord series, I believe it's called. It's been so long since I read it, and I didn't even read it. I listened to an audiobook series, so I can't remember.
Wasn't it just called Codex Alera?
Yeah, Codex Alera,
the
yes,
first
thank
book?
you. From Codex Alera. I stole the entirety of Alera Imperia and also the Canim. I did not steal the Vord because, no thank you. So Gallus is a cursor. He's a member of the Cursori. He's one of the First Lord's spies, and he's in a foreign country gathering intel. He's also a cool, fun wizard man. Who is he's been given a couple opportunities to get magic items to improve his combat, and every time he chooses to instead improve his Spanish villa that he's making into a wizard's tower. He also has a perfectly normal orphan he is adopted from one of the orphanages, who's perfectly normal and
has no future plot significance.
No. But he's training her to be his apprentice, and she is super fun, and he's being a great wizard dad, and he's a grumpy old former sergeant in the Alaran Legion, so just A+. I'm very happy, and you heard about Xanthos earlier.
Yeah. The next one is introduce any other parties you've played in or DM'd. That's 5 podcasts, so we are going to skip that one.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We're just skipping that. It would take too long.
Yeah. In the future, perhaps. And in the past, definitely. Do you have snacks during game times? Yes, food is good.
Food is always good. I try not to have... I have drinks. When I'm DMing, I don't do snacks.
Or we'll take a small break long enough to choke down a couple burritos and move on with our lives.
It's hard, because when I'm DMing, I'm talking so much that... All right, you guys, open the door. No.
It can be fun sometimes if you work it into the NPC.
Yeah, if I have snacks, I eat them, and the person who's talking is eating.
Yeah. Do you play online or in person? Which do you prefer?
In person and in person.
I've played online before.
Same.
I have personal issues with talking to people over Skype, especially multiple people. I had some bad experiences in online gaming that created sort of an issue with me. And
I don't have that issue. I've just never had a campaign online go well over the long term.
Sure, yeah.
I've tried it several times. Just it's so much easier for them to fall apart than in-person games.
Yeah, I agree. What are some house rules that your group has?
Recently, I added surprise rounds back into 5th edition because fuck you, I like those.
Man, I can't think of any that we're currently using, that I currently use, that aren't everyday shit, if the die rolls on the floor, just go ahead and pick it back up and re-roll it. Although I used to be the exact opposite.
No, keep it.
Yeah, what does it roll?
The die, honestly, I have a soft rule of the die roll on the floor. All right, you're going to look at it and you'll make the call then? Okay. I'm fine with that. That's amusing. Because at the end of the day...
It doesn't fucking
matter.
matter.
It doesn't fucking matter.
You have to honor it. It's like golf. You play the ball where it lies. Does your party keep any pets?
Yes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Sometimes, depending on the character, the pets are kept. Sometimes, depending on the character, no pets are kept.
Sometimes, depending on the character, all animals are potential pets.
Sometimes, depending on the character, people are potential pets. It really just depends.
I play a lot of fucked up characters.
You have kept people pets multiple times,
yeah.
And
I told
you and that guy
such.
on Tumblr.
Let's see. Do you or your party have any dice superstitions? I wouldn't let Will Wheaton touch my dice if that's what you're asking.
I don't watch Critical Role, so I don't get that joke.
Will Wheaton's just bad at dice.
He's cursed.
He is cursed.
I have 2 sets of red dice. They're fucking cursed. I'm not joking. They don't roll well, ever. Ever. So if I have an NPC who I want to go down like a bitch, I use the red dice. If I'm playing a character and I want that player to lose whatever's going on, I use the red dice. It's incredible. I usually roll really well, except for the most recent times I've been DMing. I've been rolling like absolute shit. But I usually roll really well in general, so if I have someone I want to tune down balance-wise, I start using my red dice. I have 2 sets of red dice. One is the first set of dice I ever got for D&D. The other one is set I got recently that looks almost exactly the same, so to the point that I can only differentiate them if I'm looking really closely. And the other set have absorbed the curse, so red dice and me just don't get along.
I mean, like, I have the very basic, please don't touch my dice kind of thing. But at the same time, if someone was at the table and they didn't have dice, I would share.
Yeah, so would I, but I wouldn't be happy about it.
Sure.
It would, and that's one of those things that's so fundamental to role players. You don't even count it as a superstition. Don't touch my fucking dice.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've got spare dice anyhow they could use, so it's not.
Yeah, I've got so much dice in the. I have about 8/10 of 12 sets of dice.
Same. Actually, way more. I accidentally collected a bunch. We had a rule back when, here's a house rule I used to have, when we played in my mom's basement, like all good D&D players should. If you left your dice there for too long...
They're my dice now.
They're a free game. And usually we were cool about it and didn't take anyone's dice, because it's their dice. Or if they came back and they were like, hey, where's my really cool special die? We were like, you caught me. But eventually we all stopped role-playing, and a lot of guys just didn't come back for their dice. I don't think I use any of them anymore.
No, they're all in like a spiderweb bag somewhere.
Well, we've got a couple of other ones as well that have become part of my collection. I couldn't tell you where I got them from originally, but I use like dice sets I bought now. So how did you get into D&D and how long have you been playing? Let's do the short version of that.
I've been playing D&D since I was like maybe 15, 14 maybe. I got into it at school. I met some people who played D&D. They offered to make me... I wasn't really into Dungeons and Dragons, Satan's game at the time, because it was too nerdy for me. That's right. And I was an unbelievable weeb. So... Let's look at getting into the deep lore at this point. I really liked Full Metal Alchemist. My first DM offered to make me an alchemist class, and the rest is history.
My mom bought me some AD&D books at a garage sale, Blue Box, and actually it was just the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Shout out to Alec, by the way.
Baldwin?
No.
Good.
I would never voluntarily play D&D with him. He's a chode.
But yeah, no, she just bought me the Dungeon Master's Guide. She knew what the hell she was buying. She knew I liked fantasy stuff. I had just gotten through The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, so she picked that up for me. And Final Fantasy, obviously. So with like half rules, I managed to cobble some stuff together. And eventually I met a guy at high school who sort of remembered most of the rules. And I set up a party, and he ran me through my first little mini campaign. And then he ran off with those books. Not intentionally, I let him borrow them, and his parents were like, hey, guess what, you're moving. And then they left. Yeah,
you experienced like such a kid cliche that when you meet someone who it actually happened to, you don't believe them.
It happened to me twice. I had a girlfriend the same thing happened to.
Let's see here. Next.
Yeah, where the hell was I? And I've been playing since I was like 13, so about 20 years ago. Have you ever regretted something your character has done?
Yes. I'd rather not get into details, thanks.
Yeah, actually, me too. Not like,
No, it's not like weird or too hot for TV or anything.
No, I don't want to get too deep into it because I'd have to explain a lot. It's just fucking depressing. I let a character get away from me and stopped playing the character as they should have been played and started playing into the skid in a bad way. And I've done that a couple of times, and I didn't feel like I could use the character after that, and they were good characters.
It's pretty much exactly what happened to me.
So
it's not gross or weird. It's just a depressing story, and I'm having a good day.
Yeah. Also a long story, and we already running long, boy. What color was your first dragon?
Red.
I don't see color. So.
Oh, stop.
Jeez, I honestly don't know.
I remember. Well, I'm talking about Dragon I DM'd. Okay. I couldn't fucking tell you the first dragon. Probably black, honestly, but
green.
Really?
No. Ooh, actually, there was a red one before him. Yeah, it was a red dragon.
But the first dragon I DM'd, red. Fun fact, though, I'm the only one that knows that. The first dragon I used as a DM was in a Star Wars campaign. He was a battle droid.
You know, actually, coming to think of it,
secretly a 4th edition red dragon.
going back further in that little custom session I was talking about earlier about the barbarian, the first dragon was white.
Well, there you go.
There we go. Do you use pre-made modules for original campaigns?
Fuck no!
Original campaigns.
Pre-made modules, no, excuse me. Original campaigns.
I'd like to
use, sometimes you use pre-made stories.
Sure.
I do original, I don't understand how people DM pre-made modules. I don't understand it.
I would like to try it, but I also don't want to have to pay for it.
I get bothered using pre-made maps.
Sometimes you can prepare too much, and a lot of pre-made modules to cover all bases prepare too much, and I find that's their biggest issue. You get into that place where you're like, all right, guys, but I paid $30 for this book. Can we please get back to the plot? And I hate to even be in that position, so why? How much planning or preparation do you do for a game? What did I just say? How about that?
When I'm at my best, almost none. When I'm running on full steam, I make the world, as in I decide what is there, what is going on, what is important to the campaign, and therefore what do I have to keep track of. And then I let it run as it does, and moment to moment for individual session by session, I do almost no pre-prep. When I'm running full steam, I don't need to.
I don't know at present. I'm kind of in a DMing transition. I don't fully understand my DMing skill set anymore. It has changed over the past few years. Historically, not much unless I'm A, setting up a world for the first time, or B, running a plot with time travel. Because I have to keep very tight understanding of when everyone is. That was not an easy game to run.
I'm sure.
But it was fun. And it worked out well. Let's see. What have your players done that you could never have planned for? What have I done?
That's right.
In every game.
You know what? No. I'm not going to talk about you, because I always end up talking about your ridiculous derailing ass.
I don't do.
We're gonna talk this week on the Two Nerds podcast about Brandy. And how she has quietly, completely fucking derailed at least 2 of my campaigns. One of which is the Molyneux Rainey campaign.
Yeah.
Where it was a different campaign after she got done with it, entirely different than the one I started. And it was glorious, and we had a great time, and I, as I do when I am at my best, rolled with it. But we're not going to talk about you for once, you completely derailing shitbag.
I've been really good this campaign.
You have what? No, wrong. You're the rails now. You lay in the rails, son. You're laying the track.
Fair enough. Yeah, that I never could have planned for. Usually if someone throws me off my game, it's because I elected not to plan for it, or I'm being brought down by hubris. And I don't mean that as like an egotistical thing. I just mean like I was being lazy and I know it. You know what I mean?
I'm going to make a special shout out to that time we killed your BBEG way too early, and you looked at us and said, I'm totally cool to let this slide. You know, this can go through.
And the game is over.
That means you win. If you'd like to continue playing this campaign, he has to get away. Which I liked. You were so matter of fact about it.
It was a good
clearly
moment.
You clearly win. But that means that you win. The campaign is over now.
And they elected to continue, and I thought that was a good moment as players. But, I mean, I had a backup plan for it. I went in knowing that might be an option. I wasn't expecting it, but there it was. Number 26 we're on now. What was your favorite scene to write and show your characters? By which I think they mean players.
Right?
Construct, we'll say. Plan for.
I want to pick something different than I've picked so far.
Okay.
Do you have one on hand?
It's kind of a low pitch, and I've talked about it before, but the final battle of my last 3rd edition campaign, the entire final arc of that last 3rd edition campaign.
That was really good. I liked that a lot.
I had been working on that really hard for a long time. I had restatted up your old characters in the 3rd edition and higher level compared to what you guys were then. And it was, in case you haven't heard it before, I'm not going to make you search out the old podcast, also to give boys some time to think.
Yeah, thanks.
But there were so many D&D campaigns that went unfinished, and now I'm in a place where I can go, well, you know what? They don't need to be finished. But back then, I felt bad about it, So I took all those characters, and I set up situations where they needed to split the party. So 2 teams, one of Boy's characters and one of Brandy's characters each, went out and, sometimes the old characters, sometimes new characters, mixing them up. They had to go do things all at the same time, and they did it. And then there was this big boss fight against me. And
we killed the third edition iteration of White as a GM, so It was the final third edition campaign.
It was
because the GM was dead.
But I wanted to give it a big send off, and I know that's kind of tropey. I know other people have done it; it's not that unique. But I spent time.
Well, fuck you! It was fun.
Yeah, I spent time doing a specific remix of some music in
that was important to various campaigns.
So yeah, it was good stuff.
You get to revisit old boss battles.
Yeah, that was fun too. And I took them through a bunch of campaigns they'd never been through before. They went through a weaving timeline of the world that was unstable.
He let us finish a bunch of campaigns
that
didn't end up getting a good end.
Yeah.
It was really fun.
And it went exactly how I wanted it to go, and I was happy with it. Good way to send an entire edition off.
This is oddly difficult for me. It shouldn't be. I've enjoyed a lot about DMing various things and various scenes and all that. But in terms of scenes that I specifically constructed to get to beforehand...
You do it a lot, too.
I do it a lot, but picking a favorite is really hard.
Well, it's not set in stone. We'll do this podcast again in a year, and it'll be different.
That's true. You know what? In that case, I'll pick something recent. It's a very low-key sort of situation, but the final confrontation at the end of the most recent arc of your current campaign, not the fight with the fire cultists, but the negotiation with the governor about how things were going to go forward. I had set that. I specifically went through a whole bunch of effort to logically set that in place, and it got to exactly where I wanted, and it ended up working out really well.
Yeah, it was good, really organic. Do you allow homebrew content?
I almost exclusively use homebrew content. What do they mean?
Well, usually when in the community, they mean
someone brings their class. Yeah. You know what? I don't actually play that often with people I don't know really well. So I would say totally. I'm gonna be looking over it first.
Yeah, I've taken risks on that before. Sometimes it pans out. Sometimes it's pants. But I'm provisionally, yeah.
Provisionally, sure, why not? I mean, maybe it's just you don't like this one class feature this class gets, so you moved it for something else. That's fine. I got no problem with that.
And to that extent, if you bring me something like Mercer wrote or some forumer wrote and I look it over and it's fine, sure.
Yeah, if you bring me something like there are a couple people who do good theory crafting online. If you brought me a class the giant in the playground forum,
yeah, sure.
I'm not even going to look over that.
No, yeah. Just accept that it's broken but legal and move on.
Yeah, pretty much.
How often do you use NPCs in a party?
In this most recent campaign,
it's been a lot.
It's been a lot because my players have NPCs they've recruited who are powerful people. They get the option. They choose to bring them.
David chooses to bring them. I don't ordinarily. Once I brought someone with me, but.
It's been a lot. You guys almost all your big fights have included at least one NPC party.
Yeah, that is true. A couple of times it seemed thematically appropriate, but I'm getting to that point where I'm, they're never quite as useful as I'd like them to be.
Well, because to be as useful as you'd like them to be, I have to actually literally go and craft their entire character sheet, and I don't want to.
I don't mean that in a negative way. I just to be, quote unquote, sharing the experience, as it were.
Oh, that's the thing is, I actually made a call on that. I don't bother. I'm not going to bother splitting up or lowering your experience as a result, because I don't go in and make their character sheets all the way, and I don't have them use the most useful, tactically advantageous thing they could be doing at any given moment.
Well,
so since they're sandbagging, they don't get a share.
Let me turn that phrase around. I don't want to diminish my challenge, part of the fun of D&D, the difference between writing a story with friends and playing the game of Dungeons and Dragons. I don't want to diminish my challenge at all, if it's not going to be that useful or that interesting,
Like in the most recent fight where they brought two much higher level clerics, because they managed to get in good with the leaders of two local religions, to a thing which is a problem clerics will have to fix, but they brought them along the dungeon crawl beforehand. Like, they did it in subtle ways, but those guys really warped the encounters.
Yeah, like, I would have loved to have had that first fight be just me and David, especially because this character specifically, but, like, in general, it's smart to save your best abilities for the boss. Sometimes you may not use them, but then you were awesome.
Well, it also, it made it more reasonable for me to use the optional bonus boss I'd included.
Sure. But it would have been nice to have that encounter without it suddenly ending. It would have been nice to, have to tick off a couple more of those abilities to save my own ass or David's, and then have to fight the optional bonus boss. That would have been neat, but whatever. As a DM, NPCs are almost always with my characters in some form or another. Usually I fluff out a reason for them not to fight, or I'll just hand their stats over to the other player.
Yeah, like, honestly, if you guys keep bringing Dania and Brother Hector around, I'm going to have to craft it. I'm going to have to make them as characters, which means I have to make their classes. Because a thing I do in D&D is NPCs don't have the same classes as PCs. There are differences. Because there are certain things I like NPCs to be able to do the PCs can't. There are certain things I don't like NPCs to be able to do the PCs can. To make PCs feel like more unique, and to make it feel more like the world isn't just populated with all these guys who are playing from the same handbook. NPCs' magic is usually a little different. Their spells are a little different, their class features are a little different, because that way the player characters feel unique to themselves, and it's not, I have the same abilities as every other cleric in existence. Okay.
Sure. And even if I have the same abilities as every other paladin to Menelaus, that makes me different from paladins to other gods.
Exactly.
And that's cool.
I prefer that, and so if I have to craft an entire character sheet, I have to craft character, like the class, and that's a pain in my ass. Yeah. So I try and incentivize them to go into situations where they don't need an NPC with them.
I'm incentivized. Do you prefer RP heavy sessions or combat sessions?
RP heavy. We've recently done combat heavy sessions, and I'm having a great time, but you're not.
No, I think the Dark Souls.
I think all right. So the ridiculous. I want to be the quote unquote realist. I prefer a healthy balance.
Yeah, same.
But if you're making me pick, I'm going RP heavy.
Except for 4th edition.
In 4th edition,
either way.
Yeah.
But except for 4th edition, if I play a whole game and all we do is fight, I'm probably going to be a little bored. Unless it's like an epic fight. But in 4th edition, man, we could open up with like, all right, guys, roll on the random encounter table, you find some goblins, we spend the next 3 hours killing goblins, and it was usually still really good.
Whereas I was bored off my ass the whole time.
As the DM, yeah. You maybe understand where I'm coming from.
Actually, no. As the player, I hate playing 4th edition. DMing 4th edition is the funnest thing in the universe. It's so easy.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Because it's balanced. It's more well-balanced than, like, a circus performance. It's ridiculous. I don't have to try. I just, there's this many of this many people. Here's the math. Here they need to fight this many of this many monster.
And maybe that's the difference.
Copy, paste, copy, paste, copy, paste. Because it's so easy I don't have to try. And then the combat just runs itself. And basically not involved.
Well, but the time you're not spending trying really lets you embellish and tell a story and roll with it.
That's why it's fun to DM 4th edition.
Whereas, running
dishwater to play.
Running super combat heavy 5th edition for one person is such a careful balancing act. So, that you might, there's a nugget of truth in there I didn't even think of. I've lost place.
30.
30. Are your players diplomatic or murder hobos?
Diplomatic.
I don't think I've ever played a murder hobo.
I have.
Well, but when these terminologies crop up, and they get super popular, I get kind of frustrated because suddenly everybody who wants a combat encounter is a murder hobo.
It gets reductive. For me, a murder hobo is like, I don't tend to use that term because it has become a bit derogatory in a way I don't like.
I just think the blanket for it is getting larger and larger as time goes on, and if you spread out the accuracy of the term, it loses its
like so many other terms in our modern society. if you layer that butter over so much bread, it gets thin. I'm sorry. It starts to lose what it's there for. Characters for whom all they have is a hammer is a great way of explaining it. So every problem is a nail now.
And the mentality of everything in this world is mine to kill or take. You know, the players who want to live without consequence. The what the hell is his name? The halfling from...
the Bilkar Bitterleaf.
Yeah, the Bilkar Bitterleaf of the world. That, to me, is a murder.
Standing on top of a pile of corpses, I am a sexy, shoeless god of war.
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with being good in combat and enjoying combat. Please, I've been doing a lot of that lately. But or even stealing shit, but there's a certain mentality.
In terms of our players, definitely diplomatic. I rarely run into an encounter as a DM, and I've been DMing for you for a fucking decade, where you don't at least try and talk first.
I'm playing an evil character, and I still try to get people to surrender.
Yeah, you still try to get people to surrender. You take people alive so that you can convert them later, a la Big Boss.
He won't give me Fulton balloons, and I'm mad.
You don't get Fulton balloons. You know what? I tell you what, at high levels, you might be able to get a teleport item. Like a wand of baleful teleport that teleports them to your holding cells. that only works on unresisting, unconscious people. So you knock them out and then you Fulton teleport them to aggressive hugland.
It was made by a wizard named Fulton.
Fulton's wand of aggressive relocation. Shit! Now you are gonna. That's gonna be a thing. That idea is too funny. But yeah, no.
You know what though? I just happened to realize. You know what a murder hobo is? It's what in 2nd edition most people called chaotic neutral.
Yeah.
And I've always played the chaotic neutral who's not like that. We discussed that in our alignments podcast. That was a couple of weeks ago. You can go watch it. Finally, we're coming through the end. This is a long podcast, kids. That's good. We haven't done a long one in a while. We used to do these an hour every week.
How the fuck did we manage that?
Lots of us.
Lots of us.
What is your favorite class and favorite race? That's hard to say. So what is a favorite class and favorite race?
I'd like to stick to D&D.
Yes, that's fair. Good call.
Which is actually sort of hard because I haven't played D&D, but for D and Dark Souls in a long time. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, my favorite race is still human. They're just the most flexible. They've got the best variant. You get a free feat and all the pluses to attributes you could need.
I heard an interesting thing on Don't Mention a Better Podcast in Your Podcast, WebDM. To avoid people always picking the human variant at start, everybody gets a feat.
Oh yeah, then I can pick whatever I want.
Yeah, isn't that nice?
Yeah, that's a good idea because that feat is so useful.
Yeah, and feats are so fun in 5th edition.
And I mean, there's a lot of good, useful things for other races. There's a lot of other races that are really useful, but if I'm making a character, unless I'm going with a very specific concept, which I do often,
yeah,
I'm
same.
probably going to be playing if it's just a random character, like roll up a character playing D&D, probably going to roll up a human. Favorite class? I mean, come on. It's wizard. Of course it's wizard. It's always going to be wizard. It wasn't wizard in 4th edition, and I think that's part of the reason I like 4th edition less.
5th edition is the first time I will 100% agree with you. Wizard is the best class.
It's not, but unlike 3rd edition, it's not OP. It's not broken.
There's just so many fun options.
So many fun options, and all of them are good.
I can look at a single wizard archetype, a single school specialization.
And there's 5 or 6 characters just in that school.
Yeah. And that's what gets me excited about stuff, man. Just being able to play even the same shit 5 different ways and have it feel differently, that's awesome. Now, that said, I don't know if I would play that class with my favorite race. And my favorite race isn't core book at all. So I'm gonna give you two answers here.
His favorite race is half elf.
You can go fornicate BR yourself. My favorite race, my pet race, is Knowles. I don't know. I really dig them. I think they look cool. I've liked them since I picked up the 3rd edition book. They looked goofy in 2nd edition. But
Big cool hyena man.
yeah, big cool hyena man. They're awesome. I think hyenas are really cool in general. So good shit there. But let's say out of the core, 5th edition book. It's a tough answer. I want to play a lot of different things. In the past, I've gravitated around the big three, humans, elves, and dwarves. I've played more of those than anything else. Core book, I think dark elves. I'm gonna build my own little territory on the edge here, but I just think they're really neat. I think their culture's really neat. I like that they have to fight up against, oppression or roll with it. I'd actually love to play a dark elf faithful to Loth who isn't chaotic evil style. Just...
So like neutral evil or lawful evil then?
Yeah, or just, misguided. I mean, they could even be a good soul, but like... there's ways to work it out. I'm not going to spend this podcast talking about it because we're already running long. But I think it'd be interesting. And I could play that as a wizard. So, there you go. What role do you like to play the most? Tank, healer, etc.
Ironically, for wizard being my favorite class, healer.
Healing is fun.
I like in terms of playing D&D, I get the most joy out of playing a healer. It's for so many different reasons. I'm naturally a support in terms of all video games that I end up playing. I enjoy giving others a platform on which to be awesome more than I enjoy being awesome myself for the most part. And there's just something feels really good about, the enemy's they've done all their best and they've fucked up your entire party. You just go, well, guess what? Fuck you. That didn't happen.
Not today.
Not today. Just this once, everyone gets to live.
But I think I don't know. I don't think I have a favorite. I think I like them all. Like, I can think of great moments in dealing ridiculous damage. I can think of great moments in, like, standing around and not letting other people get hurt. I've really enjoyed being a tank.
Oh, you're playing a great tank.
Yeah, I love it. But
he's so hard to hit. AC is such a flat curve in 5th edition.
Impossible to hit. And because he does I can front load so much damage, I can make myself look like a really big threat while my wizard friend cleans up. So it's even without aggro as a hard game mechanic, it works. A paladin works as a tank, and I like it a lot. But I also like being a healer. I've played all, and I really like all of them. So long as I'm playing an active role in the combat, I dig it.
That's cool.
How do you write your backstory? Or do you even write a backstory?
Sometimes.
Usually, I think.
Not always. It is a sometimes. I always have a backstory, but sometimes it's very, very patchwork. It's very piecemeal.
Sure.
In terms of D&D characters, I don't know that I've ever really bothered, except for a couple times. For characters in non-D&D games, I've done more, but if I write a backstory, it's usually just a couple lines, just an idea of how to get me into the character. But on the same scale, there are characters who I've written entire little short stories about.
Yeah. I like to be able to supply both myself and my DM with how this character arrived where they are right now.
It's always good to give your DM plot hooks.
And even if they're not plot hooks, for the DM to understand what your character wants out of the world.
If you give your DM how they got to where they are now, and your DM is a good DM, you gave them plot hooks.
Well, sure. But, even if you just give them a series of words and don't go, my brother went missing years ago.
If it's as simple as this tiefling grew up on the streets and he was an enforcer for local crime lords. One day he found a magic book that gave him magic powers, so now he's fucking off before someone can take it from him. That was literally the backstory for one of my characters, and it worked great.
It was good stuff, and it gave me plot hooks. So, Ooh, can we go back to favorite NPCs? Oh, we're gonna leave that one as a hook.
See what we did there?
Do you tend to pick weapons and spells for being useful or for flavor? I think this is another one where you want to strike a balance.
Yeah, you want to strike a balance. You don't want to be the load, but you also don't want to be the spotlight hog. You don't want to be the Mary Sue in charge of the campaign who all the other player characters suck compared to. So it's about striking a balance. And to be fair, in 5th edition it's harder, but for most of my D&D career I played D&D 3.5 and I played wizards. So I almost had to pick spells for the opposite of being useful. Because if I was actually trying, the fucking fight is over now.
Yeah, the longer 3rd edition existed and the more the meta cropped up out of it. Oh boy.
For flavor, I think is my preference, but you don't want it to be not useful. A
Sure.
great example is David is currently playing Gallus. He picks universally for flavor, and he's still incredibly cool and useful.
And I think that speaks something to the accessibility of 5th edition. We were talking about...
It's hard to suck in 5th edition so long as you're not playing a ranger.
We were talking about rough tier lists last night, and aside from... And even the ranger, while they might be the least useful class in the game, I would still... If someone brought a ranger to the table, we could still make it work. All right? They're not that bad. They're just not optimal.
They'd be getting a magic weapon real goddamn quick.
Sure. But the internet runs on optimization. So a lot of the scuttlebutt and talk you hear is, this character can't output the deeps.
At the end of the day, they're not much worse than the other classes, but they are worse.
Sure. No, I agree with that. That is true. I probably err a little harder on the side of flavor than you do, just based on what I know about the stuff we do. But, usually if your DM's cool, just talk to him about it. I'm using a mace. It does a D8. In the book, maces don't do D8s. Or maces that look like mine don't do D8s.
Specifically, actually, you're using mechanically, the D8 is fine. The difference we made was that for some reason, in the book, maces do bludgeoning damage, but flails do bludgeoning piercing damage, and a flail is just a mace on which where you've taken the mace bit off the stick and put a chain in between. So them doing different damage makes no fucking sense. So his mace does bludgeoning piercing damage like it should.
I mean, even if you're using a flanged mace, it's got pointy bits on it,
It's just, it didn't make any sense, so we fixed it.
So, whatever. But that was the thing I saw in my head. It was this paladin with this shield and this mace and this heavy armor.
And I've filled that in really well.
And the same thing goes the other way in the Dark Souls campaign. You're playing a pyromancer,
which isn't a class in D&D. You may have noticed.
Yeah. So he's playing a fighter because it's Dark Souls with the Mystic Knight. Is that what they're called?
Eldritch Knight.
Eldritch Knight.
And we've made some pretty large changes to the Eldritch Knight's spell list. I've got wizard spells. I've got cleric spells. I've got basically, so long as it's something a pyromancer would have, it's cool.
Yeah. So long as it's fire or poison, I think even acid elemental, we're all good. That sounds good.
Yeah.
If it's related to that at all, you can use it. But that's all.
So it's much more restricted, but at the same time, I'm grabbing shit from paladin spell lists and cleric spell lists, and it's just gotta fit the class. That's the other thing that makes 5th edition good edition. Pyromancer is basically it's basically Eldritch Knight, but it's a homebrew version of Eldritch Knight, and it's really good. Like, it was really easy to fix.
Yeah, didn't take much effort at all. Not quite as smooth as 4th edition, but also not as crunch intensive to sit down and copy and paste and replace stuff. Last question, and I think is a quick question, so you can just go ahead and say your catchphrase after we're done. How much roleplay do you like to do?
All of it? What?
I think they mean as opposed to crunch. Like, do you talk in character, and do you, spend a lot of time talking to NPCs?
Okay.
The answer is still all of it.
Yeah, all of it.
To the point that when other people, and even myself, if I slip and do it, I get into DM mode and do it or something, when they refer to their characters by name,
Draxel goes to the store. What? That sounds so weird.
You're Draxel.
It sounds like that guy who refers to himself like the Todd. It's just like I do as much in character as a player and as a DM as I can. Look, I never was a theater kid. That wasn't available in any school I ever went to. I didn't do drama class, and I still can't take stage acting seriously if I'm actually in its vicinity. But I'm a bit of a drama guy when it comes to D&D. I have to make peace with the fact that I am the guy who everyone else looks at the table and goes, I mean, he's taking this really seriously, isn't he?
Yeah. He brought his robe and wizard's hat.
So, because when I talk to other people who play D&D who aren't a part of my gaming group and I start telling stories, I get the look. I get the look of, you're that guy. You're the guy who is an actor. And I'm not, but I kind of am, though.
I started doing it a little bit for fun, a little bit to push my boundaries when I was a teenager. But it's just so much more useful to have an in-character voice and an out-of-character voice. I can't remember the last person in any of my games that sounded like what you're hearing right now.
As a DM, it's hard to maintain. I end up talking mostly in my normal voice because most of it's narration. But I try and maintain at least a recognizable accent and cadence for every important NPC.
Or, even if it's just like some scrub, I will usually just throw on a slight accent so this isn't the DM narrating, this is the NPC talking.
I try and maintain that. As a player, I have a hard time doing a player character who isn't doing some kind of voice. Because it's just it's just the best way to separate out so I don't get, do you say that in character a lot, except as
exactly.
a joke.
Or if you've gotten so far into your character where you keep using the voice even though you oughtn't.
Yeah.
But even when I'm doing that, even if it's an NPC who would logically have the same accent and tone of voice as I do, I pitch shift it a little bit.
Yeah. The great example is Lenny.
Yeah.
Lenny from one of our Colt campaigns a little while ago. It's been over a year at this point, I think.
Yeah, it is.
He basically sounds like me because he's a nerd. And he's a white nerd, so he sounds like me.
He's slightly more nasal. He's a little more whiny.
I put a little more whine in my voice. I talk through my nose more, and he's about half an octave higher. And it's just something you do at a certain point. To the point that when I get people who've been role-playing a long time, on pod... It's one of the reasons I don't actually listen to, many... There's a lot of D&D podcasts or D&D shows. I don't listen to many of them because I find it really awkward. Partially because of that, because I'm so used to role-playing with my gaming group that little differences are really awkward.
They take some time to adapt to.
I think we're good here, yeah?
Yeah, like I said, say the catchphrase, my man.
Everything's better when nerds talk about it.
Fuck it, let's get high.